The elevator lurched, metal groaning like a beast waking from sleep, and then silence. My heart slammed against my ribs as the lights flickered, plunging us into a dim, amber glow. I wasn't alone in here, and that was the problem. Marcus was with me, his presence electric, undeniable, and way too close in the steel box suspended 10 stories above Chicago. I'm Javier Morales, 24, a graphic designer who just moved to the city for a fresh start. I'd been dodging Marcus Jackson, 26, my neighbor in the sleek Lakeview high-rise, for weeks. Not because I didn't like him, God, no. His warm brown eyes, easy laugh, and the way he carried himself, like he owned every room without trying, had me tripping over my own thoughts. But I wasn't ready. Not for the way my pulse raced when he smiled, or the way I caught myself staring when he jogged past my window in the mornings. We'd met in the lobby a month ago, his hand brushing mine as he handed me a dropped key. "Careful, Javi," he'd said, his voice low, teasing. I'd mumbled something incoherent and fled. Since then, I'd kept my distance, sticking to polite nods in the hallway. I wasn't out, not to my family back in Texas, not to myself half the time. Growing up, I'd learned to bury feelings like these, to call them wrong, until they were just shadows I could ignore. But Marcus, he was no shadow. He was a spotlight. Now, trapped in this elevator, I couldn't run. The air felt thick, charged, like the moment before a storm. Marcus leaned against the wall, his denim jacket open, revealing a white tee that hugged his frame. He was a barista by day, a poet by night, and somehow both suited him perfectly. "Well," he said, his voice cutting through the quiet, "this is one way to get to know each other." I forced a laugh, my hands shoving into my pockets to hide their trembling. "Yeah, stuck in a metal box. Dream date material." He raised an eyebrow, his lips twitching. "You said date. Interesting choice, Javi." Heat crept up my neck. I turned to the control panel, jabbing the emergency button again. Nothing. The digital display was blank, the buttons lifeless. "Come on," I muttered, willing the elevator to move, to save me from this moment where I felt exposed, like Marcus could see every secret I'd locked away. "Relax," he said, stepping closer. Too close. His cologne, something woody, warm, hit me and I froze. "We're not going anywhere for a bit. Might as well make the most of it." I glanced at him, expecting that teasing grin, but his eyes were serious, searching mine. My throat tightened. "Make the most of it how?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, his fingers grazing my wrist, light but deliberate. My breath caught and the world narrowed to that single point of contact. "Javi," he said softly, "why do you keep running from me?" I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but the truth was heavy, pressing against my chest. "I'm not running," I lied, my eyes dropping to the floor. I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" His voice was gentle, but there was an edge to it, like he already knew the answer but wanted me to say it. I swallowed hard. "This, you, us." The words slipped out, raw and unguarded, and I instantly regretted them. But Marcus didn't flinch. He stepped closer, his hands sliding to mine, fingers intertwining. My heart was a drumbeat, loud and erratic. "Then let me make it easy," he said, his voice low, steady. "I like you, Javier. I've liked you since the second I saw you fumbling with that key in the lobby. And I think you like me too, but you're scared as hell to admit it." I opened my mouth to protest, but nothing came out. He was right. I was terrified, not just of him, but of what he represented. A door I'd kept locked for years. One I wasn't sure I could open without everything falling apart. My family's voices echoed in my head. My dad's stern warnings about sin, My mom's quiet disappointment when I didn't bring home a girlfriend. I'd built a life around their expectations, even 2,000 miles away. But here, in this stuck elevator, with Marcus's hand in mine, those voices felt distant. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, and I looked up, meeting his gaze. There was no judgment there, only warmth, patience, and something else. Something that made my chest ache with want. Marcus, I started, but the words tangled. How do you explain a lifetime of hiding? How do you tell someone you want them but don't know how to be the person who can have them? He didn't push. Instead, he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. You don't have to have it all figured out, he said. Just stay here, with me, right now. And then he kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like he was giving me a chance to pull away. But I couldn't. My hands found his jacket, gripping the denim as I kissed him back, the world outside the elevator dissolving. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what I should be or who I was failing. I was just here with him, and it felt like freedom. The elevator jolted suddenly, the lights flickering back to full brightness. We broke apart, breathless, as the floor hummed beneath us. The digital display blinked back to life. 10, 11, 12. We were moving again. Marcus laughed, a low, warm sound. Well, damn. Talk about timing. I couldn't help but grin, my heart still racing. Yeah, timing. But as the doors slid open on my floor, reality crashed back in. I wasn't ready for this, not for the world outside, not for the questions, the looks, the consequences. I stepped out, my hand slipping from his. Marcus, I need time. His smile faltered, but he nodded. I'm not going anywhere, Javi. You know where to find me. As the doors closed between us, I stood frozen in the hallway, my lips still tingling, my heart torn between running back to him and running from myself. The next morning, I woke up with Marcus's kiss burned into my memory, a ghost that followed me through my tiny apartment. I stood at my kitchen counter, staring at my coffee maker like it held answers, but all I could see was his face. Those eyes, that smile, the way he'd seen right through me. I hadn't slept, not really. My mind kept replaying the elevator, the heat of his hand, the way I'd walked away. I wasn't proud of it. Running was what I did best, always had. Back in Laredo, I dodged questions about my love life, changed the subject when my cousins teased me about settling down. I'd moved to Chicago to escape, to be someone new, but here I was, still hiding. Marcus deserved better than that. Hell, I deserved better than that. My phone buzzed on the counter, snapping me out of my spiral. A text from my sister, Elena. Call Mom. She's worried you're lost in the big city. I groaned, tossing the phone down. Mom's version of lost wasn't about me getting mugged or missing rent. It was about me straying from the path she'd laid out. Church every Sunday, a nice girl, a house full of kids. I loved her, but her love came with strings, and I was tangled in them. I needed air. Grabbing my sketchbook, I headed to the rooftop garden of our building, a quiet spot with views of Lake Michigan. I discovered it my first week here, a place to sketch and think without the city's noise. But as I pushed through the glass door, I froze. Marcus was there, sitting on a bench, scribbling in a worn notebook. His head was down, his locks falling over his forehead, and for a second, I thought about bolting. Too late. He looked up, his eyes locking on mine. Javi, he said, closing the notebook. Didn't expect to see you here. Yeah, I come up here to draw sometimes. I held up my sketchbook like it was proof, feeling like an idiot. He nodded, patting the bench beside him. Plenty of room, unless you're planning to run again. The jab stung, but his tone was light, not cruel. I sat, leaving a safe foot of space between us. The city stretched out below, all steel and glass, alive in a way that made my problems feel small. But they weren't small. Not when Marcus was right there, his presence pulling at me like gravity. About last night, I started, my voice unsteady. I'm sorry I bailed. It's not you. He leaned back, studying me. Never thought it was. But you've got a lot going on in that head of yours. Don't you? I laughed. A bitter sound. You have no idea. Try me, he said, his voice soft but firm. I'm a poet, Javi. I'm good at listening to the stuff people don't say. I hesitated, my fingers tightening around my sketchbook. I'd never told anyone. Not Elena, not my best friend from high school, nobody. But Marcus's eyes were steady, waiting, and something in me broke open. My family, they're traditional, Catholic, big on rules, on what's right. Growing up, I heard it all the time, who I should be, who I should love. I tried to be that guy, you know? Dated girls, played the part. But it never felt right. And then I moved here, thought I could start over. But I'm still stuck. Marcus didn't interrupt, didn't look away. When I finished, he nodded slowly. That's heavy. But you're not stuck, Javi. You're here. You're figuring it out. That's not nothing. I wanted to believe him, but fear was a tight knot in my chest. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough? He reached over, his hand covering mine on the bench. You're enough. You just gotta let yourself believe it. His touch sent a jolt through me, and I didn't pull away this time. We sat there, the wind carrying the scent of lake water and city dust, and for a moment, I felt lighter. But then my phone buzzed again. Another text from Elena, probably about Mom. Reality was never far away. Over the next week, Marcus and I fell into a rhythm. Coffee runs in the morning, late-night talks in the rooftop garden, his poetry readings at a little jazz club in Wicker Park. He'd read lines about love and rebellion, his voice weaving magic, and I'd sketch him in the margins of my notebook, trying to capture the way his words lit up the room. Each moment with him chipped away at my walls, but they didn't crumble. Not yet. One night, after a reading, we walked along the Chicago River, the city lights dancing on the water. Marcus stopped, turning to me. Javi, I'm not pushing you, but I need to know. Are you in this? Because I am. All the way. My heart pounded. I wanted to say yes, to leap, but the shadows of my past clung tight. I want to be, I said, my voice breaking. I need to figure out how to tell my family, how to be me without losing them. He nodded, his hand finding mine. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here. But as we stood there, the weight of his words settled over me. I wasn't just choosing Marcus. I was choosing myself. And that scared me more than anything. The call came on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of Chicago day where the sky felt like it was pressing down on you. I was in my apartment, sketching a design for a client, when my phone lit up with Mom's name. My stomach dropped. I hadn't called her back since Elena's texts, and I knew this wasn't just a check-in. Javier, she said when I picked up, her voice tight. Why haven't you called? Elena says you're avoiding us. I'm not avoiding, I lied, pacing my living room. Just busy. Work's intense. She sighed, the sound heavy with years of unspoken expectations. You sound different, distant. Is something going on? I froze, Marcus's face flashing in my mind, his laugh, his hand in mine, the way he made me feel like I could be whole. I'm fine, Mom, I said, but the words felt hollow. I wanted to tell her, to rip the bandage off, but the thought of her disappointment, or worse, her silence, kept me quiet. After the call, I met Marcus at the jazz club. He was on stage, reading a poem about breaking free, his words sharp and alive. I watched from the back, my sketchbook open, but my pencil didn't move. I was stuck again, not in an elevator this time, but in my own head. When he finished, he found me in the crowd, his smile fading as he saw my face. "What's wrong?" he asked, pulling me outside into the drizzle. I told him about the call, the weight of my family's expectations, the fear that I'd lose them if I came out. He listened, his eyes never leaving mine, and when I finished, he pulled me into a hug. "You don't have to choose between them and you," he said. "But you can't keep hiding who you are. It's killing you, Javi." He was right, but knowing it didn't make it easier. The next day I called Elena. She was the only one I trusted to understand, or at least to try. We met at a cafe in Logan Square, her eyes narrowing as she studied me over her latte. "Spill it, Javi," she said. "You look like you're carrying the world." So I told her. About Marcus, about the elevator, about the way I felt alive with him but terrified of what it meant. Her face softened, but there was worry there too. "I love you, Javi," she said, "and I want you to be happy. But Mom and Dad, they won't get it. Not right away." "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "but I can't keep pretending." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Then don't. I've got your back." That night, I went to Marcus's apartment, my heart pounding as I knocked. He opened the door, his smile warm but cautious. "Didn't expect you tonight," he said, stepping aside to let me in. His place was small, cozy, filled with books and vinyl records. A half-finished poem sat on his desk, words scratched out and rewritten. I turned to him, my hands shaking. "I told Elena," I said, "about us, about me." His eyes widened, then softened. "How'd it go?" "She's okay with it. Supports me. But my parents," I trailed off, the fear creeping back. Marcus stepped closer, his hands on my shoulders. "One step at a time, Javi. You're doing this. You're braver than you think." I wanted to believe him, but the thought of facing my parents, of losing them, felt like a knife in my chest. Still, standing there with Marcus, I felt a spark of courage. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be me. We spent the night talking, laughing, kissing, the world outside fading away. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where I wasn't hiding. A future with Marcus, with love, with truth. But as I left his apartment at dawn, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was sharp, worried. "Javier, Elena told me you're keeping something from us. Call me. Now." The courage I'd felt moments ago wavered, but Marcus's words echoed in my mind. "You're braver than you think." I just hoped he was right. I didn't call Mom back right away. Couldn't. Instead, I threw myself into work, sketching designs until my eyes burned, trying to drown out the panic. But Marcus was a constant, a tether pulling me back to myself. We spent every evening together, walks along the lakefront, late-night pizza runs, moments where I forgot to be afraid. He was patient, never pushing, but his presence was a challenge to my silence. 2 weeks later, I couldn't avoid it anymore. Mom called again, her voice sharper this time. "Javier, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I was in my apartment, Marcus beside me on the couch, his hand resting on my knee. He nodded, a silent encouragement. I took a deep breath. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you. I'm gay, and I'm seeing someone. His name's Marcus." Silence. It stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, her voice, small and shaky. "Javier, how could you not tell me? How could you choose this?" "It's not a choice," I said, my voice cracking. "It's who I am." She didn't yell, didn't cry, just said, "I need time," and hung up. I stared at the phone, my chest hollow. Marcus pulled me close, his arms steady, but the hurt was sharp. I'd known it would be hard, but knowing didn't soften the blow. The next few days were a blur. Mom didn't call back, and Dad's texts were curt. asking me to think about what I was doing. Elena tried to mediate, but I could hear the strain in her voice. She was caught between me and them. Marcus was my anchor, his apartment a refuge where I could breathe. But even with him, doubt crept in. What if I'd ruined everything? What if I'd lost my family for good? One night, at another of Marcus's poetry readings, he dedicated a poem to me. It was raw, about love as rebellion, about choosing yourself even when the world pushes back. The crowd cheered, but I could barely hear them over the lump in my throat. Afterward, he found me outside, my eyes wet. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. "I don't know," I admitted. "I want this us, but losing them it hurts." He took my hands, his grip firm. "You're not losing yourself anymore. That's what matters. And I'm here, Javi. I'm not going anywhere." His words carried me through the next week, but the silence from my parents was deafening. Then, out of the blue, Elena texted, "Mom wants to talk. Video call. Tomorrow." My stomach churned. I didn't know if it was a chance at reconciliation or another rejection, but I couldn't keep running. The call was set for noon. Marcus offered to be there, but I needed to do this alone. As I sat in front of my laptop, waiting for the call to connect, my heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. Mom's face appeared, tired and drawn, Dad beside her, his expression unreadable. "Javier," Mom started, her voice unsteady. "I've been praying, thinking. I don't understand this, but you're my son. I don't want to lose you." Dad spoke next, his voice gruff. "It's hard for us. We were raised different. But we're trying. Okay?" Tears stung my eyes. It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was a start. "I just want to be me," I said. "And I want you in my life." "We're here," Mom said, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. 6 months later, I stood on the rooftop garden with Marcus, the Chicago skyline glittering under a summer sunset. We'd come a long way since that stuck elevator, through fear, doubt, and hard conversations. My parents were still adjusting, their calls a mix of awkward questions and cautious warmth, but they were trying. Elena had met Marcus, her approval sealed with a hug and a teasing, "You're too good for my brother." I was starting to believe I could be enough. For them, for Marcus, for myself. Tonight, Marcus had planned something. He led me to the bench where we'd first talked, a nervous energy in his steps. "Javi," he said, pulling out his notebook. "I wrote something for you." He read, his voice steady but thick with emotion. A poem about two souls finding each other in a world that tried to keep them apart. It was us. Our story, raw and real, woven into lines that made my heart ache. When he finished, he looked at me, his eyes shining. "I love you, Javier. I want this us for keeps." Tears blurred my vision as I pulled him close, kissing him under the fading light. "I love you too," I said, the words free, unburdened. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city alive below us. The elevator had been a beginning, a moment that forced me to face myself. But this here now was the real start. I wasn't just Javier, the guy hiding from his truth. I was Javi, the man who loved Marcus, who chose himself, who built a life worth living. And as the stars came out, I knew I'd never be stuck again.